This webinar is an introduction to some product and licensing updates, as Noemi said. Hopefully you've had a chance to see the, excuse me, you've had a chance to see the press that has gone out, LinkedIn and other types of places. You'll have seen that shared, etc. Definitely take a look at that because it has a couple of extra points in there as well. Anyway, let's crack on. The key thing that Kemp is all really around is the application, the always-on application experience. And therefore, what we're trying to do is we always have sought to work very closely with our partner community. Obviously, that's you here today, and those who are listening to the recording after the event. And the partners, our partners, have sought to kind of come back to us, ask us questions. Hey, what about this? What about that? We're seeing this in the market, etc., and seek to engage in a conversation about what we as an organization, Kemp as an organization, should be doing. And we obviously have always worked hard to listen to our partners. So really the purpose of today's update in terms of our pricing strategy, as well as some of the product enhancements, is really to develop that tighter alignment with these customer-facing value propositions and use cases. As I say, these have come from partners like yourselves, things we're seeing in the market, direct customer feedback, etc., as we seek to continue to grow Kemp's business and obviously working closely with our partner community to help them grow theirs. We'll show a couple of examples of those in a second. Obviously, the idea ultimately of any vendor, including Kemp, is to seek to make it easier for you and your customers to select, maybe ultimately select the right product for their use case, and then scale and deploy and all of these things. How do we make you, the partner, more successful? How do we ultimately make our end user customers the most successful they can be with the workloads and the requirements that they have? So, and ultimately that's really about getting them to adopt more Kemp products in their ecosystem and their environment. And lastly, you know, our price list, we wanted to try and make sure we had focused on the right SKUs, the right products, because once again, no one likes scrolling through page after page of Excel sheets or PDFs or whatever it might be. We want to try and make it easier to select, easier to purchase, etc. So therefore, we've sought in these changes to kind of try and minimize the model complexity. You'll see that very specifically with our virtual appliances. We've reduced the number down to 3, and to say 2 of those are quite new. Let's jump on then. A couple of use cases have recently come up. I think people always like to hear about real live use cases. Mid-market insurance company, I think they're based in Chicago, and they had a team of about 140 using a custom application. Say that seemed to fit very nicely with our entry-level hardware boxes, the X1 and the X3. As I say, we're just announcing the X1 today, so that is definitely a new game, a new box in town. Another application that's come up recently was actually a large automaker. This is across from Australia and the west coast of the United States. About 400 users, so multi kind of site, different locations. They had heavily invested in virtual technology, hypervisors, and we actually positioned our virtual appliances into those products and were successful in winning that opportunity. So once again, as people seek to build out different integrated solutions, we're able to really position Kemp well, whether it be the need to be hardware, dedicated appliances, if that makes sense for the customer's business, or if they're a fully distributed operation, possibly really preferring that hypervisor-based option, then we obviously have our virtual appliances here as well. Let's jump on. Let's say, as our partner community, the vast majority of you are really trying to offer a complete solution to your customers, whether you would call yourselves a kind of an ISV, where you're kind of building out a dedicated solution there, or service provider, or some other value-added function that you're providing for your customers. We hope that you'll now be able to build an even tighter integrated application stack leveraging the Kemp products. Now, that could obviously be with entry-level hardware such as the X1, where you've maybe got a large number of kind of customers or little areas, small kind of sliced out customer pods that do require hardware. That's something that the customer prefers. And therefore, that would be a great way to extend your application stacks, make it easier to consume at the right price point. Similarly, with the new lightweight virtual appliances, trying to decide, do I need this one? Do I need that one? What's my performance requirements? We've tried to simplify that in this series of changes. So therefore, we've got easier to decide that entry-level product, plenty of horsepower, ready to go for most applications. So as you're building out your application stacks or as you seek to enhance those, certainly Kemp has an option for you. Now, some of you as partners have a very much broader customer base who maybe actually require very differentiated licensing and delivery options, such as things like SPLA. Obviously, that stands for Service Provider License Agreement, and that's really where that's born from. But obviously, SPLA can be applicable in other types of partner environments. And therefore, that's something that Kemp has had for a very long time, and we've tried to kind of make that a little bit easier to consume, as you will see as we go through the slides. Similarly with subscription, the traditional model of the kind of perpetual license has worked and does work very well for many customers. However, some do prefer the option of actual full subscription. Now, whether that be in your business life, I'm sure you're familiar with that these days, as well as in your personal life. Subscriptions is just something that makes sense. While I'm using the product, I pay for it. When I don't want to use it anymore for whatever reason, then I don't need to pay any more. And that's something that Kemp has offered for a little while, and we've expanded that across the whole virtual product line. And lastly, cloud. Kemp, very early days into the Azure platform, obviously the AWS platform, etc., and other clouds. We've always had that opportunity, that product line there. And now we've just tried to make sure that that is even more integrated with the perpetual licenses that you can have and subscriptions. You can run those in the cloud as you seek to expand out your hybrid infrastructure. And I think really the hybrid infrastructure, I think, is very much here to stay. I think if you're dealing with any type of customer these days, that's certainly something that they say to me, and I'm sure they're saying to you. Whether it be hybrid, whether it be exclusively cloud, that bit is a little less clear and really depends on the customer's business. But cloud is often a part of the solution. So obviously, if we have the new lightweight hardware, the new simplified virtual appliances, as well as some alternative licensing consumption models, really that's about, I hope, developing an increasing business for you and increased customer adoption and ultimately retention. So in terms of just a graphic, in terms of our pricing model, perpetual there on the left, that's a funny word, but that's the word that we've sold licenses. So we sell you an appliance with a hardware, software, all of these things, and you then consume that license and then you add a subscription plan on top. That's obviously been Kemp's mainstay for many, many years, and that's still here to stay. But we have these other choices all feeding back into a common pricing strategy, whether it be the cloud model, whether it be full subscription, which we've extended, as I've mentioned, whether it be SPLA in terms of trying to allocate a large number of maybe smaller appliances to distribute out to your customers. And then we have two options at the bottom. We have metered licensing, something that I'm sure you've heard about on previous webinars, and once again, that's certainly something that we will continue to roll out. And we have this this taster here of something called pooled licensing. We do intend to do another follow-up webinar in about a month's time from now, maybe a little bit sooner, where we actually go through that in more detail. So we'll be talking about metered and pooled, and really that kind of true differentiated licensing platform. So I say, not going to talk too much about pool today, but this is meant to be just a little hint for you. Okay, jumping on to some of the actual product changes. As I mentioned, we're seeking to respond to a lot of the feedback we've received that there were just a little too many choices in those virtual appliance lineup, and we've sought to make that more straightforward. So the performance is going up, but the range is being simplified. That's really by starting to use the VLM 500 as the entry-level standard VLM appliance. Now that has obviously all of the features of the standard Loadmaster, but it has a lower MSRP as well as that higher performance than the existing VLM 200. Those of you who've looked at our subscription options before will know that the VLM 500 existed in the subscription area, and we've effectively moved that over into the perpetual lineup as part of this, as I say, a standardizing and a simplification of the entire price list. We have the VLM 3000, which isn't listed on this sheet because it's not new. That's something that we've had for quite some time, and that is really kind of that workhorse in the middle of the lineup. And lastly, we have the VLM Max. The VLM Max is designed really for those customers and partners who really need that flexibility to grow. They know that something's going to happen. They know that the business is going to grow. Maybe it's starting out small, but they know they need to go places with it. Or possibly they want to expand that underlying hardware that's allocated to that virtual appliance. So the VLM Max is an uncapped virtual appliance and allows you to grow your performance as you add CPU cores, as you add RAM, as you add network interfaces, basically as you need to grow your business or your customers are growing their businesses, really providing the ultimate in flexibility. So VLM 500, VLM 3000 in the center, and then VLM Max at the top. And as I said, these are available in the perpetual license model as well as in the full subscription model. Okay, let's have a look at the hardware. A little video here that we like to use. These are on the website. Well, not the X1 yet, but the other Loadmaster appliances have this kind of fly around video model, just a very attractive way to remind you of some of the touch points of each of the appliances. And as I say, this one will be going live on the 18th. I'll just talk through it in a second. You can see here we have basically 4 gigs of RAM in the X1. Obviously, we have a single hard disk, a 500 gig hard disk, 4 Ethernet ports, because as I say, that's designed very much as an entry-level appliance. It is 1U as a single power supply, and the performance envelope is 1 gig. It's 1 gig per second throughput, along with 1000 TPS. Really, as I say, that is certainly providing a good amount of horsepower at that entry-level part of the market for those integrated application stacks, where, as I say, that's something that Kemp can help you with. As I say, all these videos are very, very useful. Great little reminder on the website there, and definitely kudos to the marketing team for putting those together for us. Lastly, a quick update on SPLA. So it may not be directly relevant to many of you, but it is something that's good to be aware of. So we've sought to simplify the models in this program as well, actually all the way down to the VLM 50. VLM 100, 500, 3000, and I think you can pretty much recognize how the naming convention works for all of these platforms today. So certainly a 50 meg load balancer, something that can be easily deployed by you or a customer for numerous end customers, very easy to grow, very easy to get profitable for the business due to its very aggressive price points. And as I said, it does offer a little bit more at the entry level end there in this particular program, but you'll notice the VLM 500 and the VLM 3000 still in this model, as well as one called the VLM Geo. VLM Geo, we've always offered this in the SPLA program. It definitely seems to make sense for our SPLA customers who are only interested in the global server load balancing product. As I say, just happens to be there. The other important thing about SPLA in the program is that every time you purchase one of these appliances, you automatically get 24/7 support, you automatically get the Geo load balancing, as well as the WAF, as well as the ESP feature as well. So we've got a lot of features that normally have to pick. Do I want standard subscription, enterprise, enterprise plus? All of these types of questions. But actually, for SPLA customers, we include all of those advanced features out of the gate. Makes it easier to deploy, easier to decide. It's basically a one configuration option, so that whatever the customer is trying to do or whatever you're doing for those customers, you're able to use those. In terms of the local pricing in your specific region, please reach out to one of the Kemp representatives that you're aware of. If for some reason you're unsure about the representative, just reach out by kemp.ax and do connect with sales in the top right hand corner, and you'll be able to get plugged in immediately with the team if you're interested in learning more about this or any of the products we've spoken about today. Okay, let's have a quick kind of summary piece here, and then we're going to jump into some questions, I hope. The key thing is what's happening. Well, as I said, we're responding to customer feedback, and we're trying to increase the value that you experience with tighter alignment to what you're trying to do with your customers. Whether you are positioning boxes as part of a general sales activity, or whether you're positioning software in terms of like an ISV option or a service provider using SPLA, you want to believe and know that Kemp is fully supporting you in your markets, in your customer base. We're launching the new X1 appliance, as you can see it here on the right-hand side of this nice stack of products. Very attractive, fits in nicely with the other systems. As I say, that will be going out on the 18th of February, as we're going to talk about in 1 second. But the point is that product really is trying to kind of give us a new option really there at the entry-level part of the market, which is something that, as I say, I'm sure you have experienced challenges in, and we want to make sure that you feel fully supported in that space. We've also refreshed all of our subscription options and VLMs, and really one of the really attractive things is the VLM Max. As I mentioned before, that unlimited license capacity, really designed to take advantage of all of those benefits that you get as you roll out these faster and faster Intel processors, or upgrade your hypervisor platform, etc. To be able to take advantage of some of those benefits, Kemp is really offering you a great set of choices in the VLMs, specifically the VLM Max. And I say I'd love to be able to talk to anybody more about that if you have any specific questions. And lastly, obviously, the SPLA refresh. Once again, may not be 100% applicable for all of the folks on the call, but I definitely know that there's a number of you who are interested, who have already deployed SPLA, and maybe you'd like to think about that as a new customer in that space. And really, it's designed around providing increased profitability quicker with relatively limited upfront investment. Okay, so what are we going to do? When are we going to roll all these things out? So I say it all kicks off on the 18th of February, which is coming up very soon. Pretty incredible the way the year is already moving forward. I hope you've had a great Q1 so far, and may that continue. But anyway, we're going to roll this out on the 18th of February. And I say certainly for any more information, check out kemp.ax after the 18th of February, or if you'd like to answer any questions now that we either don't get to on the phone or very specific for your customers and your customer use case, just reach out to Kemp, contact the sales team, and they will be more than happy to help you out. Okay, with that, I will leave a few minutes open here, 10 minutes or so, to get to any questions. Noemi, do we have any questions today?
Yes, I apologize. I was on mute. We do have a couple questions coming in already.
Great.
How do you address the issue of a customer who recently purchased the VLM 200 and wants now a second one to do HA?
In terms of the question being now they can only use the VLM 500, is that probably likely the question?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as I said, I think I would try and deal with that on a case-by-case basis. if there is a person out there who has a single VLM today and wants to add a second one, I suppose the easy answer is that we can definitely help you. As I say, these are all license-based. The core operating system for Loadmaster is common, and therefore, all of the features and functions work the same way, all of the same kernels, etc. So therefore, we should be able to work that out with you and with your customer. And say, if you have an actual problem with that, please reach out to the support team, and they would be able to help you as you roll out those changes. But once again, there should be no issue with that whatsoever.
Great. We have a few more coming in. When will we receive the updated price list?
Okay, so the updated price list has already been distributed through our sales teams out to our distribution partners. If you, for some reason, have not received that or you have any questions on it, reach out to the Kemp representative that you dealt with before, and they will be able to help you with that. But as I say, in terms of it going live, it goes live on the 18th.
Great. And we also had a question related to open quotes that are referencing the previous price list.
Right. Yes, absolutely. That's a very good question. Certainly something that I'm sure you've already positioned quite a few quotes that you expect to close this quarter, etc. So the simple idea is, certainly for the virtual appliances, actually the costs of those appliances are coming down. So therefore, you may want to consider re-quoting in that scenario. But certainly, generally speaking, 30 days, etc., we'll be able to hold those quotes open without any issue. And once again, definitely another case for dealing with the Kemp reps and representatives that you have historically dealt with, and we'll be able to help you out with that. Once again, this is actually definitely helping us grow and help you grow your business. And if we can do that by holding prices, etc., making sure things are available so you can close deals, and just reach out and we can definitely work with you on that.
Great. Ian, we have a few more questions coming in.
Great.
One is related to the LMX1 subscription, whether it only be standard or enterprise.
Yeah, so we have 3 subscription levels, as I'm sure everyone on this call knows: Standard, Enterprise, Enterprise Plus. In the X1, we're only supporting Standard and Enterprise. If you want the Enterprise Plus subscription, we definitely need to move up to the X3, and that's probably an example of an upsale opportunity, to be honest, for you in this space. Reason is obviously it has relatively small amounts of memory, things like that, limited performance capabilities for things like WAF. So we've decided to not support Enterprise Plus on the X1 at the moment. But as I said, that should allow you to position the X3 if someone is very keen to have those additional subscription features.
And we received a couple other questions. One was, are there any changes to the metered licensing price list?
Yeah, so metered licensing, as I said, is a very active program, and we're doing great with that. What I'm going to do, as I said, with the pooled licensing and metered, I'm going to have a dedicated webinar for that. So that should allow us to explain all of that. As I said, no changes today, no changes on the 18th of February for that. Everything remains the same. But as I said, we're going to roll out some changes, including the pooled licensing later. Basically, there's going to be some updates there. So once again, metered and pooled, definitely going to handle that. We're going to go through everything line by line, a little bit more technical detail than we're doing today. And so that will help clear up any of that for existing metered business, any new metered business that you're thinking of getting into with customers, as well as the new pooled licensing options. All of that dedicated webinar, probably in March.
Perfect. We're getting a lot of questions, which is great.
Fantastic.
I will just try to go through as many as possible. Now, some of these, Ian, I know you mentioned in the presentation, but I think it will be good to reiterate.
No problem.
And I can also understand some people may have joined late. What's the max capacity for VLM Max?
The max capacity for VLM Max. Well, as I said, it's basically it depends on the underlying hardware. So it's the idea VLM Max is designed. So with the other virtual appliances, they are license capped. So VLM 500 has a maximum throughput of 500 meg per application throughput. With VLM Max, we don't have any of those restrictions. So it's really around how much hardware, memory, or CPUs, memory, network interfaces that you're able to allocate to it. And that's really how that's going to work. As I think we've all experienced, the growth in terms of performance from the Intel CPUs and then the hypervisor platforms being able to leverage that, etc. We needed to have a product which would allow our customers and partners to be able to grow with that, with those levels of changes. If you deploy something today and you give it a certain number of CPUs, you then buy a bigger CPU tomorrow, then you deploy another load balancer, etc. You want it to continue to work on those platforms and continue to grow, and that's really going to be a great thing about the VLMX. So there isn't a cap. It's really all around. Let's talk about how much CPUs, how much memory, and network interfaces, etc., that you're going to allocate to that virtual appliance, and how many other machines are also running on that same piece of hardware. Because once again, as I'm sure we're all aware, if you heavily oversubscribe your underlying hardware, that does have a performance impact. So as I say, Max is designed to be Max, and therefore any way that we can grow that performance for you and your customers is very important to us.
Great stuff. I know we're coming close to 10:30 Eastern, so I will probably just finish up with one more question, Ian, and then we'll make sure to share the recording with everyone. And as I mentioned earlier, anyone who didn't get an answer to their question will be contacted directly.
Perfect.
So the last one is that we'll be talking about is, since the LMX one is supposed to be an entry model, is there simple sizing we can do to determine if we should quote this or the LMX 3?
That's a really great question. The key thing that we have sought to do as Kemp is to provide sizing guides. That comes in a variety of forms. They're all on the website, and we will be adding the X1 to that sizing guide. It allows you to specify certain characteristics of the application, and then you can actually get a very helpful kind of sizing guide. Do I want a lot of SSL? Do I not want a lot of SSL? Do I want a lot of throughput? Do I have a lot of number of users? All of these kinds of questions, and that is available on our website right now for the existing models. And I would encourage you, if you've not had a chance to check that out, I would definitely jump on there, kemp.ax, and look for the sizing guides, etc. That's basically where we'll be updating that in February.
Great, and I think it's a great way to end the presentation. So anyone who hasn't had a chance, make sure to visit kemp.ax now, as well as post February 18th, where all the new information will be available. Ian, thank you so much for the great presentation, and thank you all for joining and for taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to some of our new updates. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.